You don't really want to tell me about Brexit, do you?
No.
Because I know nothing, and I'm sure you would just be furious.
British politics has gone crazy at the moment. Like, it really is unbelievable. Do you know about all the stuff that happened with the Boris closing Parliament and the Supreme Court reopening it and stuff, and he lied to the Queen and everything?
No, none of those sentences mean anything to me. That's
man.
amazing.
You have missed some amazing stuff happening in British politics at the moment. It's extraordinary.
I would say lying to the Queen doesn't sound like a good career move, but
I mean those are my words, but it's kind of like it's complicated.
okay. Well, look, I just need to know the critical piece of information.
Yeah.
Halloween, Brexit or no Brexit?
My betting, as of 10 minutes ago, is no Brexit yet. There'll be another extension. But that's far from definite.
That's far from definite. Okay.
Yeah, it's changing rapidly.
That's what I was guessing.
Politics is crazy at the moment, and American politics is having all this amazing stuff too. And the thing is, I quite enjoy following it on podcasts.
Right.
But the thing is, and there's probably 4 or 5 podcasts I like, but if you don't listen to a podcast the day it comes out, forget about it, because it will be completely. Listening to it 2 or 3 days later, it'll be like they're talking about the Roman Empire. That's how old it seems. You have to listen to this stuff straight away or not at all, because it all is so much changes every day.
I like that. I like that you're approving both of our strategies in that sentence. You have to listen to it all or listen to none of it.
Yeah. You have to listen to it immediately. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
My feeling has been, I just keep thinking. Look, someone let me know when it looks like something for real is happening, because this has been just the most amazing. So much has happened, but also nothing has happened, and just extensions keep occurring. And I remember months ago I thought, oh, this October one looks pretty solid for something happens, whatever it is. And I've just gotten the feeling, from people like you vaguely mentioning oh, there's a bunch of stuff going on in the past couple of weeks. I'm like, oh, maybe this October thing isn't happening either. And this really will just be kick the can down the road for 100 years.
A lot of people have pinned a lot of their reputation to it happening on October 31. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's getting but it's looking difficult to do. And that's why it's getting really nasty now.
So your bet is nothing happens on Halloween. That's your bet. If you had to put money on the table.
If I had to put money on the table, I think there will be an extension. And then maybe the general election will happen before. A general election is very imminent. And then what happens in that general election could dictate what happens next, but I don't know.
Okay.
It's pretty complicated.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Let me ask you a different question then.
Yeah.
5 years from today.
Yeah.
Do you think the UK is in the European Union, out of the European Union, or the situation is still undecided?
This is, if I had to bet my money.
Yeah, your money. You're going to put £1,000 of your money on the table.
Yeah, okay. And this is the 26th of September.
Yes.
At 9:50 p.m.
Right.
Because I could think something very different in 20 minutes' time.
Right.
But as of this moment, I would bet that in 5 years' time, Britain will be out of the EU.
Wow, out. Interesting. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
So you think that even though there may be an extension, you still think it's going to end up Brexit?
Yep.
Fascinating. I would not have guessed that.
It's not what I personally want.
Yeah, no. I'm not asking what you want. That's the whole reason for bringing up money, right? Because money makes it nice and clear to separate what do you want versus what do you think is going to be likely.
Yeah, I would bet on that 60%.
Do you have an ability to summarize your rationale behind that without having to recount the whole history of everything that's happened from the Roman Empire until now?
Because I feel like the opposition, which is very poor in the UK, isn't solidly in favour of remaining. Certainly the leader isn't. Corbyn. So I also feel like the election, when it happens, will appear more of a victory for Brexit people than Remainers.
Wait, then so you think in the next general election, Brexit people will have a victory?
I think Conservatives will take a big hit, but the Brexit Party will suddenly appear and win seats, and the Labour Party will take a hit. The Lib Dems, who are very Remain, will have a big boom, but not enough to be true players. So I think the Parliament will be even more fractured, and I don't know how it will be resolved, because the more fractured the Parliament gets, the more difficult it is. But I think ultimately it's very hard to not be seen to somehow implement the result of the referendum, whichever party's in power. And I guess the only way to do that is with a second referendum, and then the second referendum has to be won by Remain, which isn't certain. But
yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I don't know what the second referendum would look like if it happened, and I think people are a bit stubborn too, like the voters. Like I think a lot of people who probably now realised Brexiting's not the best idea, still would vote for it because it's like, well, stuff them. We voted for it the first time. It's like if you said to your wife, "I want to go to a Chinese restaurant. I really, really want to go there," and she said, "No," and you really insisted on it, and then you got there and you saw them bringing out rubbish food. You'd still kind of like eat the food just for like pride. I really wanted to come here, and we're eating this food now, right? That's what we're doing. And you'd be sort of eating it thinking, "No, this was a mistake," but I'm not going to tell her that I don't like it.
Most people I talk to feel very confident that if there was a second referendum, that the Remain option would overwhelmingly win. And I always feel like, ooh, I'm not so sure about that, guys.
Because you also don't know how it'll play. It'll play the same way, you know.
Yeah.
Remainers will be all intellectual and rational about it, and Brexiteers will have, like, you know, a simpler. They make the case simpler.
You have a more direct story, and you can also add on top of that, they're trying to undermine democracy, right? Which is like, So it almost won't be about Brexit anymore, will it? It'll be about it'll be a vote about whether or not we should respect votes. Yes, that's like 100%. And if I was the chief strategist, that is an angle I would explore to see how does this work in polling groups.
It's already come out that they've planned like one of the ways they would do it the second time, and it was something like, you know, tell them again, like this. They've already got like they're saying, and it's something like tell them again.
Oh God, that's so. That's a great political slogan. Again, no matter what you think of the issue, that is clear, and that like hits emotional bullet points.
Hits a lot of points, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh,
it's a shame. It's a shame because it's clearly going to have some negative impacts. But you know, whatever. I'm definitely suffering this Brexit fatigue that everyone else is suffering. You know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I followed it enough that I had made 2 videos on Brexit. But even I feel like this incredible Brexit fatigue of like, please just can we make a decision? Like, I just, you know, it's unbelievable to me that the UK has existed for so long under this period of uncertainty. And I had to look it up again because it's always shocking to me when I remember that the referendum was in 2016.
Wow.
You know, and from 2016 until now has just been this constant existence of uncertainty. You know, that's why I asked you what you think is going to be the situation in 5 years, because I could see this, I could see this dragging on for quite a while.
Not 5 years. What would you bet? What would you bet your money on? I know you don't follow it, so you don't really want to bet your money on it. But
Yeah,
where do you think it's going to be the case in 5 years?
that's why I'm in a bad position to make any kind of bet, because I'd be betting based on absolutely nothing.
We'll just do one anyway for fun. We've qualified it pretty heavily that you don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
What's like just a gut feeling?
I think if I had to put my own money on the table, I would probably bet the way you do, that the UK is out. But that's only because the current situation still seems to me to be that, like, that is the default to have happen. That like this can occur simply through like gridlock and inaction, in the way that it seems like it takes much more energy to reverse this. In my head, it feels like the playing field is tilted toward Brexit in a way that it takes much more energy to move in the opposite direction. Now, again, I could be very much misreading that, but that's the way it seems, that we need to keep extending what the deadline is, to say like, oh, it's not going to happen on Halloween. It's Christmas Day is the best day to Brexit, right? Like, you just keep pushing it back. But all it takes is for someone sometime to fail on pushing it back, and then by default it does occur. So I think if I was putting money down on it, that's the way I would put my money down.
Did you watch The West Wing?
Not consistently, but I watched enough of it.
In the like towards the end of The West Wing, there's like a West Wing spoiler coming. Towards the end of The West Wing, there's like a real gridlock about who the Democratic nominee is going to be after President Bartlett.
Yeah.
And they can't. It's not getting resolved, and they've got one of these deadlocked, conventions. And then, like at the last minute, Bartlett himself intervenes and like anoints Santos. And that tips everything, that changes everything. And previously, immovable objects are moved, and he sweeps to win the nomination.
Right.
I wonder what it would take to change things in the UK, if it was to change, like, or in either direction. Like, would it take? Like, all I can think of is if one day the Queen said, "I want 10 minutes on the BBC tonight," and said, "People of Britain," like with tears in her eyes, said, "People of Britain, I strongly believe the best thing for Britain is to do X, Y, and Z."
Right.
The Queen, who never speaks on anything, and and she'd made this impassioned plea with emotion we'd never seen before.
Right.
Would that tip it? Would everyone say, "Oh, okay"?
Yeah. The Queen's been off Twitter for 85 years. And then she has one tweet, which is her opinion about which way things should go, and then it's
that astronaut gif holding a sign saying,
"Yeah." Then it has so
Remain.
much. It has so much more value. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, yeah, because the royal family does have this theoretical power, but they do also there's no way you could deny that would have an impact. But it's also just a little bit unclear. And, my position on the royal family there is like, it's probably better to be, seen but not heard. That it's like, yes, the royal family is a thing that exists, but, they should not be having their hands on the levers of power.
Next time I'm in London, actually I'm in London in a couple of weeks, let's go for a beer and I'll talk to you about what happened the last couple of weeks with the proroguing of Parliament, because you'll actually find it really interesting, because this was a case of the Queen did something because the Prime Minister told her to, and then the Supreme Court ruled that it was illegal. But the Queen doesn't get in trouble for it because she just does what she's told, and he got in trouble for advising the Queen to do this thing. It's like it's held up into a whole new light how the Queen is nothing. Like, because everyone knew this thing, closing the Parliament they were doing, seemed like something they couldn't do. And the Queen, signed off on it and did it. And then everyone was like, "You can't do that." Went to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court said, "You can't do that." Yeah.
Yeah, it brings up this thing of the actual power of the monarchy versus, or the theoretical power versus the actual power. And the actual power is very small. And
Yeah, it's like, I mean, yeah.
it's hard to say
Yeah.
what that power is beyond your actual example of if the Queen asked the BBC to spare her 10 minutes on the evening news, I'm pretty sure she
Yeah.
could get it. But
Yeah.
that's very different from an actual hands on the lever, like, oh, I'm going to steer this ship in this direction or in that direction.
I just wonder if it would change enough voters' minds, like, because there's always speculation. What does she want?
Mm-hmm.
What does the Queen want? And like, but she would never say, and people would, will speculate. But
I think it's, I think it is the correct thing that she doesn't say.
yes,
Like,
of course it is. But of course it is. But would it change anything, or would it not even move the needles? Like, would the side that she opposed just say, well, what does she know?
Although I would wonder if even in her private life, if she's ever expressed an opinion one way or another, because you would have to be worried about that even coming out as a rumor, right? Of like, oh, I overheard the Queen.
What do you think? What do you think she would want?
I don't think it's an obvious answer either way.
Surely leaving is good in some ways, because it increases her. The more. I mean, I think the UK is sovereign regardless, but the more obviously sovereign it is, the more power it seems to. The more prestige for her family.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, but everybody seems to think that the Queen would agree with them, and I can see very easily.
Well, I don't. I've just said the opposite.
Yeah. But you're a different kind of person, Brady, right? Yeah. Most people I talk to, if they want the monarchy to intervene, it's because it would intervene on their side, right? And again, it's like maybe not. It's very easy for me to see either side of what she would personally think. It's not obvious to pick which side that would be, but it's.
Be fun to know, though, wouldn't it?
It would be fun to know, but that's also why if I was the Queen, I feel like maybe just never even in private conversations express any opinion to anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And people would be like, oh, that Brexit. Have you heard the latest news? Right. And she just looks at them, and that's all it is. Right. They're trying to eke it out of her. What do you think about this thing?
There you go. Little Brexit bonus on Goodbye Internet today.
Yeah, there we go. That's. I think that's about as political as we're ever going to get on the show.
That's our politics podcast.
No, thank you. No politics.